Today I'm going to be starting a series of videos that will be going over the top 10 games that I currently have for most Nintendo consoles. It won't be every console since I haven't played a bunch of games on all of them, so it'll only be the ones that I remember playing a good amount of games on. So I want to do this to see which games that I have as the best for me on each of the consoles, and then years down the line when I have played more games and did videos for both them and the ones that could be on these lists, I'll come back to do more of these as the years go on to see which games stay, which ones end up going off of the list, and seeing if there are some of the games that I've never thought of playing before end up actually showing up onto the list in the future. Now, I'm not going to be going deep into details about the games since I'll be doing videos on them in the future. Plus, I'm going to be using the console on which I played the games, so if maybe you think of a specific game and it happens to be on multiple consoles, it could potentially be on a list for a different console. But like I said earlier, some of these games will probably have different videos where we go more in depth in them to see where they actually do end up ranking for me. One last thing, the games on these lists will only be games that I've played, so there are almost definitely going to be games that you loved and you've played over and over and over, but I just haven't. So just gonna give that warning right now. But of course, at the end, if you want to give me your top 10 list in the comments, feel free to do so. But without further ado, let's look into my top 10 games for the Nintendo Wii. Coming in at number 10 is New Super Mario Bros. Wii. This was the first 2D Mario game to make it to where you could play with 4 people simultaneously, so you could either work together to get the star coins and beat the levels, or you can end up sabotaging your friends and just making them rage out. But that's what makes multiplayer platforming games like this so much fun. 1 second everybody's working well together, everybody's doing great, and then the next second you all want to choke each other out because you're making each other's lives just complete hell. Now, this is also the first game in the series to introduce probably one of, if not my favorite power-ups, being the propeller mushroom. I love being able to use this thing to just more or less fly all over the levels and usually have just no worries about everything until there's an enemy in the sky. Plus, this being the second game of the new Super Mario Bros. Series didn't make it feel too samey to the one from the DS, whereas when you talk about the ones on the Wii U or the 3DS, well, those kind of have the exact same themes for the worlds, and they both came out within a year of each other, so it just didn't really help their cases out a lot. Thankfully though, we seem to be heading in a much better direction, but for what it's worth, playing through the original 4-player New Super Mario Bros. Game still makes me pretty happy to this day. At number 9 is Fortune Street. This game is like Mario Party, Monopoly, and the stock market all coming together to have a baby with Dragon Quest. You go around the 18 boards with 6 of them being unlockable, and if you play Monopoly, you'd understand that you're going to want to go around all the different spaces and specific areas and get everybody to just pay you an exorbitant amount of money by building it up more and more in each of the areas. There are some things that make it feel less like Monopoly. The first one is the arcade spaces that allow you to either play mostly single player mini games or that one multiplayer one where it's a random chance race. The other thing is the stocks. You can either buy stocks at the bank or on specific spaces if the boards end up having them. You can then use those stocks in either your districts to gain more money when you invest them in your own locations, or you can put those stocks in other people's districts to gain value off of their investments. There's a decent amount of strategy that you can use in this game, even though a good amount of it is determined by rolls. But if you invest really well in both the stocks and your own properties, you can still do well even with poor rolls. At number 8, we have Mario Kart Wii. This Mario Kart was the first one to have 12 different positions in the race, and set the standard of 12 players for console games for the series. This was also the first Mario Kart to include online for those who wanted to play with other people that isn't just at their house. In fact, along with those things that we've already mentioned, it was a first for other things as well. One of the bigger things was that we could use bikes for the first time here, And for some people, the biggest thing was that it was the first time that we could use Funky Kong. Well, the only time that we could use Funky Kong, until we got the DLC for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. But this game more or less has everything that most Mario Karts have had, with your Grand Prix, your time trials, your verses, and your battles, with the only disappointment really being the battle mode, mainly the main battle mode being Balloon Battle, since because it was online for the first time, they made it more time-based rather than how it used to be. Now, I just prefer it to the old way when you just gave us 3 to 5 balloons. Just let us go at it until there's only one person left. That is my preference. But the thing I'll give it is, it's not the worst version of battles in the series. Number 7 is Mario Party 8. One of the biggest contributors to whether somebody thinks this Mario Party is either one of the best or one of the worst in the series is whether they enjoy motion controls for the minigames or not. As for myself, I don't mind motion controls being a part of the games like this, unless it's forced upon you, while also being forced upon you with a very tiny controller. This game also has the usual 6 boards that Mario Party is known for having, with a selection of 14 characters, with it being the first times for both Blooper and Hammer Bro. Also, the item system changes from the past few to go back to kinda how they worked prior to 5, but also with some slight changes with the candy. Now, I will say that the items from 2 through 4 definitely didn't have you turning into a vampire or into a giant ball mowing down everybody, but I still think it's a rather decent item system. The boards themselves are pretty good too, with my favorite of the bunch being Koopa's Tycoon Town. There's not really any of them that I'll look at in the game and just go like, oh god, no, please, don't ever make me play that one ever again, unlike in some other Mario parties. So while not my favorite selection of boards, I still think it holds out alright. At number 6, we have the other main party series of this time being Wii Party. When NDCube took over making Mario parties, this was the other series that they had been working on in the party genre prior to them going from Mario Party 9 and on. In this game, you use your Miis that you make, since it's, well, a Wii game, and you go through different modes, whether you want to go from the main modes, the pair modes, which are for 2 people, or the minigame modes, which has one of my favorite minigame modes being Spot the Sneak. Now, Spot the Sneak is such a genius idea for a minigame mode where one person has an advantage in the minigames and you gotta figure out who the person is, and it's just shocking to me that other party games, including Mario Party, doesn't have a mode like this. But of course, most of the time you're gonna be playing the main party modes, with it more than likely being Board Game Island, since it's the most like Mario Party, with you going around the board and playing a minigame every turn. But my other favorite mode of the main modes would be Spin-Off, because I just like Wheel of Fortune, and while I'm not solving any puzzles, I just like spinning the wheel. Starting the top 5, we have Super Mario Sluggers. Now, if you know anything about me, one of the things that I love the most is baseball. Now, if you combine my favorite franchise being Mario with my favorite sport being baseball, well, I'm more or less probably going to enjoy it a ton. I remember when the commercials were coming out to advertise the game, and I just always look forward to seeing the new commercials, and I just couldn't wait for the game to come out. Now, there was a Mario baseball game on the GameCube, but the things that are different here is if you want to, you can use motion controls, even though you could also use the button controls if you really wanted to do that as well. The other change is how the story mode works. In this game, you go around to everybody's areas to unlock everyone to use on your team to take on Bowser Jr. and then Bowser. Each character you come by usually has their own mission that they want you to do to put them on your team, whether it's doing something as simple as hit this ball to center field 3 times, or something in the overworld like, hey, can you put these answers from these questions in this thing? Alright, cool. Now I'll join you. The main thing here though is if you put Mario with my favorite sport, you're gonna have me hooked. Well, most of the time at least. At number 4, I have Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi 3. One series of anime games that I have almost always enjoyed playing is Dragon Ball Z. Tenkaichi 3 is extremely fun whether you play it on the Wii or the PS2, but of course since it's here, growing up I had it on the Wii. This game brings you through all the sagas of Z, the movies, and through some important moments of Dragon Ball as well. Something that I dislike about this story mode compared to Tenkaichi 2 is that there are multiple battles that are mixed together into this one, and I just liked it better when there were multiple battles for each of the characters, so I could feel like I'm using them more than once for about like 30 seconds, and then that's it. Hopefully Sparking Zero that's coming out this year will have a nice improvise between 2 and 3, where there's enough battles per player, while also not feeling too short with some of the battles being just mixed together. The thing that makes the combat of the Tenkaichi series fun for me is how easy you can pull off your moves, whether it's just your normal combos, or the beams that you shoot, or some of the rushes where you just run into them and just beat the crap out of everybody. Plus the roster in this game is the biggest one, well at least until Sparking Zero comes out, which doesn't seem like it'll be too much higher than this, but still for this game, 162 characters and forms are quite enough for me to enjoy. Now at number 3, I have Super Smash Bros. Brawl. The biggest thing in this game for me is the Subspace Emissary. Running around areas with characters from a bunch of Nintendo series and now third-party series like Metal Gear with Snake, and beating up enemies while platforming is just my bread and butter. Now you could say what you want about the game's controls for battling, but I still think it controls rather well. But going back to Subspace Emissary, this was the first game to have both this big of a solo mode and cutscenes to make a somewhat coherent story, but of course most of us aren't really looking for that extreme heartthrob of a story, so I don't really think any of us cared about how the story was. It was just nice to have it there while also having our main smashing and our other modes that we've always had. You could also play online against others if you wanted to, but since it's 2024, it's a little out of the conversation while doing it on the Wii. Still though, I had a ton of fun playing this game, and I will continue to do so for quite a while. At number 2, I have Super Mario Galaxy 1. 3D Marios to this point have seen Peach's Castle and Isle Delfino, but here, we're going to space. Now, if you go out and ask people which 3D Mario is their favorite, you're probably going to get a good amount of them saying that Mario Galaxy 1 is, and I don't think people are to blame for that. This game has very fun areas to explore, and while it's not 64 or Sunshine in regard to being a sandbox, this game is more linear, and most of the stars that you get are the ones that you choose on the star selection screen, but there are some levels that have some secrets to find, and for the most part are still fun to roam around and explore. Now, we can't talk about Galaxy without talking about the Comet Observatory. While I'm not somebody who thinks having a giant hub to walk around in is a make or break, but it is still 100% fun just to browse through the area and even mess with the new power-up that you can get in the observatory. Now that new power-up is the Red Star, which allows you to fly around. There's just one issue about it though. You only use it for 1 star. That's it. And me being me, the way that I play the game, I really don't see it until I get pretty late into the game. Now that part is my own fault, but still, it would just feel nice if they could have given us, I don't know, maybe like 3 to 5 stars to use it on, whether you're roaming around to find the star, or you have to collect stuff, Or even make like an airborne race where you're like racing, I don't know, make a new enemy for the game and you use your red star to fly through gates or something in the air and you have to do it before them. Something like that. I feel like that would make it a lot better, but I will still say though, it's still fun to use. And coming in at number 1 is Super Mario Galaxy 2. This is the Galaxy game that I have always preferred to play. I like the areas of the game more than one, and this game brings back Yoshi as a character where you can control him while riding him with Mario. Also, the comets, which I didn't mention in 1 and probably should have, whoopsies, in this game will show up at a random point after you collect the comet medals and after you reach World 3. When the comet medal pops up, you can choose to go do it, or if you feel like it, you just continue on playing because unlike Mario Galaxy 1, it doesn't sometimes disappear and then you have to wait for it to come back. It just feels a lot better than Galaxy 1 because you're not sitting there always having to do it, or if you don't do it, you gotta pay to potentially be able to do it. However, the thing that absolutely puts it higher than Galaxy 1 for me are the green stars. I like looking around the levels that I've explored and had fun with to find secret areas and then, oh look, a green star! It just makes exploring these levels, even though they're mainly linear, feel just so much more worth it to me in the end. Well, that's it for my top 10 Wii games. I know there are some games that some of you probably played and could be upset about not seeing them there, but hey, that's why we're doing this. This way I can replay and rate the games that I've already played and then play those games that I have yet to play and see where everything truly ends up being on these lists down the road.